text on the top screen there is just basically summarizing the save screen. It's not all that important to read now. In fact, most of the things that are shown here aren't really relevant until after beating the game. So mainly, you know, all you do really here is just press the save button. The second day. And we're suddenly in a different area. Yeah, at this point, Neku's kind of, well, antisocial is a bit of an understatement. But that'll be explained a bit more later. In fact, this area is called just Station Underpass. And right on cue, the next mission. But this one sounds a bit more complicated than the first one. And again, ignore the time limit. The time limit doesn't actually matter gameplay-wise. And that just about explains itself. Yeah, stranger stuff has happened. Yeah, now, this actually, I don't think it's ever explained why this happens. I think it's just best not to question it. I mean, like I've said before, stranger stuff has happened, and it'll just keep getting weirder, trust me. So, it's best not to really think about this. Well, if I remember correctly, then Hachinko is in one of those areas we were at previously.
Hey!
She keeps looking at her phone. And, well, yep, all that's left is to go and try and do the mission, whatever it is. There's one of these guys here. And now from experience, wherever there's one of those red-hooded guys, something like this happens. I told you, you'd be seeing these walls a lot more. Okay, you try to be a bit more optimistic than that. Yeah, I'm agreeing with Neku there. Of course, it is bad if the way is broken, but of course, this being a game and the mission must be at least possible, there'll obviously be some way to get through this wall. And we'll find out in just a little bit. Cut short. And it's pretty obvious that these guys are somehow connected to the walls. Yeah, because reading people's minds is always a solution to every problem. Actually, in this game, that's pretty much true in a lot of cases. But in this case, it doesn't seem to work on him.
What?
Which is probably a good indication that he's a part of the game somehow. I mean, to be fair, it's only him that we're not able to scan. It doesn't say anything about not being able to scan at all. Yeah, pretty blunt there, but basically, if you haven't guessed by now, what these guys' functions are is to put up walls and then give the condition before passing the walls. That's generally a central part of the game here. So basically you have to follow whatever they say and they'll take down the wall for you. In most cases it involves fighting enemies, but in some situations it might involve some strange things like finding a certain item. And now this is an introduction to how the game's battle system works, or the encounter system in a way. Basically, you'll only find noise if you scan for them. I'll try and explain this more after this when we get a chance to do that, like, normally. And yes, it seems we do have more pins than that fire one. We've got a complete set of starter pins, so what we're about to do is we're about to figure out how to use other psychs apart from pyrokinesis, which this is a very helpful tutorial, because of course not all pins work just by dragging on the touchscreen. And that certain pins only work for certain people thing, that's apparently explained a lot more in the Japanese manual, but not the English one for some reason. Shiki can actually use pins, according to the Japanese version, but really only one. I'll explain that a bit later, but right now we're about to get into a battle and a tutorial for using other psychs. Okay, here's one of my personal favourites, force rounds. Just tap the touchscreen to fire a bullet in that direction. This is one of the most basic long-range attacks in the game. We also get another long-range pin here, the Thunderbolts. What this is you touch an enemy to lock onto it. And you can touch different enemies to lock onto multiple enemies and strike them all with lightning. But I'll explain this one a bit later. It has a weird, apparently it's a glitch. Put simply, it's not the best psych in the game. Right, now for this next one, let's see. Another one of my personal favourites, the Shockwave. The Shockwave is pretty much your basic standard physical attack. Make a slashing motion with the stylus over an enemy to charge in and do a physical attack, like that. Now, it's one of my personal favourites on the actual DS, but the slashing motion is a little hard to replicate on an emulator, so I apologise if sometimes I mess up my attacks. If you keep slashing, you will do a finishing, you'll end the combo with a finishing move, which does extra damage. And if you aim it right, you'll add area of damage to enemies nearby. It's generally a good all-round psych. Now here, this is a fun one, telekinesis. It still works with the slashing motion, but in this case you slash an obstacle rather than an enemy. Slash an obstacle to throw it at enemies. It's a little situational because it requires on there being obstacles in the arena, but it's better when you have access to cars, because, you know, fleeing cars at people is always cool. Noise in this case, but whatever.